Hey guys, it's Shara from Woodshop Diaries, and today I'm going to show you how I built this super simple little shelf. Now this project may be small in size, but it's big in versatility. You could use it for books, for towels, for a plate rack, even for shoes. This is a super quick and fun build, so if you're ready to dive in and get started, let's go. This project was sponsored by my friends at Craig Tool. I'm sharing the free printable building plans for this project over on craigtool.com, and I've linked them in the description below. You can find this and hundreds of other project plans over there, so be sure to check them out before you build your next project. For this build, I knew I wouldn't need a lot of lumber, so I headed to my scrap piles and plywood cart to see what I could find to work with. In the plans that I've linked below, I provide a plywood cut diagram showing how to cut everything that you need from just a half sheet of plywood. But if you have some scraps, I'd encourage you to dig around and use what you can find, as most of these pieces are fairly small. I ended up taking this partial sheet to my workbench and cutting it in half, then I came back for a few scraps later to use for the shelf ledges. I used my circular saw and Craig AccuCut guide to cut this piece in half first. Then I swapped over to my rip cut to rip off a piece to use as the back panel and the two sides. I continued cutting down all of my pieces until I got a back panel, two sides, a bottom, two shelves, and three what I'm calling shelf fronts. These are just the pieces that I added on the front of each shelf to prevent things from sliding off. I laid them out on my workbench to get a better visual and marked the edges that will be exposed in the finished project. That way I knew what I needed to edge band. As always, edge banding is totally optional, but it makes the project look a little cleaner, so I like to add it. I'll link a guide for how to apply iron-on edge banding in the video description, but once I had all of the sides that I marked covered, I gave everything a good sanding. I assembled this project using pocket holes and screws, so I pulled out my Craig pocket hole jig and drilled 3/4 inch pocket holes into the ends of the little shelves and along the long edges of the back side of the back panel. I used 1 1/4 inch pocket hole screws to secure the back panel between the side panels, making sure to place my edge banded edges in the right position. Then I placed the two middle shelves in and secured these with 1 1/4 inch pocket hole screws as well. Before securing, I made sure that these were equally spaced out and that the shelves were square to the back so the shelves won't be tilted in the finished project. For the bottom panel, I centered it side to side but kept the back edge flush to the back panel and simply screwed this in using 1 1/4 inch wood screws from the bottom. To prevent books, shoes, plates, whatever you put in here from sliding off the shelves, I added some small pieces along the front edges of each shelf. You could also install these using pocket holes and screws, but it's a super tight fit to try to drive them, so I simply use wood glue and nails. I applied wood glue along the front edges of both shelves and nailed these pieces on. After the glue dried, these were pretty secure, but just to better keep them in place, I did go back and add a couple nails through the side panels into these pieces too. For the bottom, since there's no shelf to nail to, I applied wood glue on the bottom edge and glued it to the bottom panel. I used nails through the bottom and sides to keep it in place while the glue dried. So this is coming together kind of as I imagined it would in my head, but I feel like it's missing something. So I'm actually going to cut another scrap piece just to put up here across the top. And then to add a little extra detail, and also just to give, like if you put tall books in here, a little bit more stability so they won't like topple over and fall out the front. I'm going to cut these round dowels. You could use square dowels, you could use 1x2s, you could use whatever. I just happen to have this in my scrap pile and I thought round dowels might be neat here. So I'm just going to cut 3 of these to just like glue and nail in place to go right above these shelf pieces here. I cut a small scrap piece to glue onto the top edge here. I don't really know why, but I felt like this top section needed something here to just finish it off, so this scrap piece worked well. Then I cut 3 3/4 inch dowels to fit right above these shelves.
These pieces are totally optional, and you could definitely trade these out for something else if you wanted to use like 1x2s, square dowels, or just anything else. This was kind of messy, but I just used some wood glue on the ends of each dowel and slid it in place about 3/4 inch above the shelf fronts. I shot a nail through each side and into these ends to hold them while the glue dried. Then I wiped and sanded off any glue messes that occurred while putting these in. The last part of this project was adding a base.
Since this is like so tall and narrow, it could have a tendency to tip over, so it really needs to be screwed to the wall wherever it goes. That said, in order for this to sit flush, like the back against the wall, it needs to sit above the baseboard. So in this example, I just have a regular 1x6 down here as my baseboard. This is just my workshop, so your baseboard might look a little bit different. But basically, whatever base I put on here, I need the base to only be on the front, not on the back. And I need it to be tall enough so that this clears the baseboard. So it's sitting flush against the wall right here, and technically I could just screw this to the wall and not put a base at all, but I think it looks a little bit better, and the base will also give it a little bit more support too.
I cut some scrap 2x2s, 2 at 6 inches long and the other at 21 inches long. I drilled 1.5 inch pocket holes into the ends of the long pieces and assembled this base using wood glue and 2.5 inch pocket hole screws. As a side note, theoretically, each joint should have at least 2 screws, but I found that when using 2x2s, they're more likely to split when driving 2 screws into such a small piece. So I found that in most cases, some wood glue and 1 screw works well. Using just 1 screw does leave potential to twist, but when building a whole project, do keep in mind that no joint is standalone. Each joint is tied to others so that they all work together to assemble the piece and keep it together. Anyway, before attaching the base, I went ahead and stained it. I used ebony stain because I wanted the base to be dark to contrast the shelf, but obviously you can finish this however you want. Then I secured the base to the bottom of the shelf using 2-inch wood screws. And at this point, it was complete. I mentioned earlier that because this is tall and skinny, it should be secured to the wall to prevent tipping over. I made this for a friend, so I'm not securing it to my wall here, but when you place it where you want it, I do recommend finding a stud and using a screw through the back panel to secure it to the wall. And now it's ready for books, shoes, plates, towels, whatever. I really hope you enjoyed this simple little project build, and if you want the plans to build your own, head to the link in the description to get them free from craigtool.com. For more projects, both big and small, be sure to subscribe to the channel for all the latest videos. Thanks so much for watching, friends, and until next time, happy building!